This is the week 9 review, and then we'll be going over the quiz. So last week, we were continuing our conversation about different styles of art making, different methods of art making, and the printmaking followed up painting and also drawing. So what is printmaking? Printmaking is the activity of making pictures or designs by printing them from specially prepared plates or blocks. Essentially, making an image and then using on an object and then using that object to make multiples of that image. We talked about relief printing, intaglio printing, lithography, and serigraphy, also known as screen printing. So relief printing is where you remove material in a block of wood, or in this case, a block of linoleum, and you use a little chisel or a knife and you remove everything that you don't want to print. So relief printing, you're cutting into a material, essentially making a stamp. So more relief printing, cut into wood. All relief printing. Intaglio prints are created by metal plates which have been cut into or scratched. In the instance of intaglio, what each method of intaglio has in common is that you are cutting or scratching a groove into a metal plate and rubbing ink into that groove. When you run the plate and a paper through the press, the paper picks up the ink that's inside the groove. That's different than relief printing, where the ink sits on the surface. In intaglio, it sits in a groove. So this is an early engraving. This one is called dry point, where it's got rough edges, these grooves that you cut into them. So you get like softer lines, which pick up, like it's actual metal burrs that are picking up ink, making fuzzy lines. Whereas this, you're using a super sharp blade on a soft metal, and you're removing the metal, leaving a clean line. This is more scratching or moving the metal to the side. So etching is where you use acid to assist in creating a groove. In order to etch, you cover a copper plate in a acid resistant coating. And acid, it's wax essentially. And once you dip the plate into this acid, wherever the wax has been removed, it starts eating away at the copper plate. So instead of carving into the plate, you're just scratching wax off the surface. And then you use acid to eat away the plate. Makes it a lot easier, a lot less time consuming. After intaglio printing, we spoke about lithography. In lithography, you're literally drawing on a stone. You draw on the stone with a material like a grease pencil or a crayon that, while on the surface of the stone, if you were to roll ink onto the stone, it is attracted to that grease. So imagine this again. You draw a picture on the stone. It's a flat stone, like about the size of a headstone at a cemetery. On a smooth, but it's smooth. So you draw your picture on the stone, and with a grease pencil, for example, and you wipe water onto the stone and it wets the stone, and that water is repelled by the grease, but it sticks to the stone. So then once you roll ink onto the stone, the ink is repelled by the water and sticks to the greasy pencil. So you can lay your paper on top of the stone then and run it through a press, and then you get your image. So this was done with a grease pencil or a crayon on the stone. This was done through some other means of creating like big shapes on the stone. All right, so then we talked about serigraphy, also known as screen printing. Screen printing, I want to remind you, is everywhere. Any logo that you have on your t-shirt has been screen printed on, whether by person or by a machine. Screen printing is different than the rest because it is not giving you a reverse image. The way it works is you have a screen which is made of a tightly woven, but not too tight, but a tightly woven silk mesh that goes on top of the frame. And you have blocked out areas of that mesh to make it sort of watertight. And so it's watertight in some places and the screen is showing in other places. So you lay your paper on the table and you lay your screen down on the paper. You pour ink onto the screen, and then you use a squeegee for literally scraping the ink through the screen in selective areas to create an image. Andy Warhol did a lot of screen printing. This is another screen print. Again, your t-shirts, your Pepsi can, your skateboards, posters often, they are screen printed. Let's go over the questions. So, here we go. So last week on the quiz, I asked 5 questions. I asked, when printing an intaglio print, does the ink sit on the surface of the plate? We just went over this. I'm sure you know. The ink sits in the grooves etched in the plate. The paper is then pressed into the grooves, and that is how ink transfers to the paper. Describe the intaglio acid etching process. The artist covers a copper plate with a waxy resist. They then scratch an image onto the plate, which selectively removes wax and exposes the copper plate. After the image is scratched into the copper plate, it is then submerged in an acid bath. The acid eats away at the plate, leaving grooves. In screen printing, how does ink transfer to the paper? The ink is spread onto a screen and then by using a squeegee is forced through openings in the silk. In the artwork of Catherine Polk, describe the types of characters in her lithographs. What are they commonly doing in the image? The characters in Catherine Polk's artwork are usually of women and daughters. Often they are doing daily chores, but not always. Then the last question, a lot of William Kentridge's artworks deal with politics. What is the subject matter he often focuses on? William Kentridge often focuses on race relations in South Africa, specifically laws of apartheid. Hopefully you did well on the quiz. And I do want to say now it is time to watch the Art of the Day presentation, and then that's going to be followed by a movie. So you're going to follow the link to a YouTube movie. Well, it's a movie. It's a Hollywood movie documentary, DIY actually, but it's hosted on YouTube. After you watch the movie and watch the presentations, go ahead and take the quiz. Have a great week.